Once this box van build is done, I really want to spend some time traveling in it, maybe for a couple of months. And just in case I find myself camping on some super hot summer nights, I wanted a way to stay cool. So in today's video, I am going to be mounting this 12-volt mini split on the back of my box van. Let me show you guys how I did it. All right, so here is the mini split unit. There's an exterior unit that goes on the outside of the van and an interior unit. And today we're going to start by trying to get this mounted. I will show you guys on the back of our van here. Now, when I was originally building this back wall, the reason I didn't go with a bigger window is because I wanted to leave space for a mini split to go on the side. So that's why this back window is pretty small, because that mini split is going to go up here in this corner. We're gonna have to start by pulling off this top cover, and I see some screws all along the sides. So let's go ahead and remove those. I'm hoping that there are ways to remove things to make this a little bit lighter, because this unit is about 45 pounds and I'm not exactly sure how by myself I'm gonna lift this up and screw it in. So let's see if there's things we can remove. So like I mentioned, this thing is decently heavy. Removing this cover doesn't really do much. This is just a piece of plastic. It looks like you could remove some of the stuff, but I think before we do that, I'm just gonna leave it in place. That way we'll see, and I'll give it a shot mounting it. Now, you have a couple different mounting options. If you're mounting it into like a Sprinter van or something with metal, they give you these riv nuts. Riv nuts are super awesome. They just get installed into sheet metal and then give you a place that you can screw into. So they would go on the back side, they go in your wall, and then your screw would tighten into that. Now, unfortunately for me, the back wall on my van is made up of a combination of plywood with an ACM cover. ACM is just this exterior, it's an aluminum composite material that's super thin. So the main structural part to this back wall is actually that plywood. It's a 3/4 inch piece of plywood. They do give you these bolts, and that would allow me to through bolt it, meaning I just put one bolt through and then attach a nut on the back side. The problem, however, is that this kit doesn't include any nuts. So the only option they give you is to use these riv nuts. And since I cannot use those, we're gonna have to go to the hardware store, pick up some nuts to go with these bolts. And boom, I have returned with a fresh bag of some hardware. So just picked up some slightly different bolts, ones that aren't threaded the entire way, just so they are a little bit stronger. And then I picked up some nuts. And yeah, that's pretty much all we needed. So on the back side of these bolts, on the inside of the wall, we will have the nuts. And just to spread out the pressure and take all of the stress off this one small section of plywood where the nut's going to be pressed into, I'm going to build a backing plate. I'm gonna fab it up real quick. And that's just gonna help spread out the weight of this unit, being 45 pounds or so, throughout a much bigger area than just one little point where the nut's gonna be in contact. And I know I could use washers too to help spread out the weight, but just because of how heavy this is, I'm gonna build a little bit bigger of a plate. All right, so I'm gonna cut 4 pieces of this just 3/16 inch steel, just flat bar, 2 inches thick. We'll weld it together kind of like in a square shape, drill holes, and that will make our backing plates. All right, so here are the pieces of flat bar, and this is actually 2.5 inch, not 2 inch. So a little bit wider. And we're just going to weld them together here. You guys can see I just took a flap disc to the ends to prep them. Basically, we are just going to be making a rectangle like this. And now I'm gonna go through with a flap disc, just clean up these welds and make them flush. And we are going to mark out holes, and those are going to be where the bolts are going to come through on the inside. I have this drill punch here, and I'm going to use that to mark out the centers of the holes that we're going to drill. And then we'll take our frame to the drill press and we'll drill out holes so that our bolts can go through. This piece is kind of big and awkward for the drill press, so I think I'm just going to use my normal drill instead. And now for the moment of truth to see if this stuff all lines up. Let's go. So here is our backing plate, and I was just test fitting all of the bolts to make sure they all line up, and it looks like they do. Now that we know that this lines up, we can actually take this into the van and start drilling some holes, which is a little bit scary, but that is going to be the next step. On the inside of my van here, I have pretty limited space of where this can go, and it's pretty hard to tell from the outside where this framing is, just because the final layer of ACM, that goes all the way up to the top of the van, and there's just all of this stuff in the way. It's a little bit tricky to get an accurate measurement. So what I think I'm gonna do instead is come and drill from the inside out, which I know has its cons as well, but that way I can position this mounting bracket in the far top corner. And the reason I want it as high up as possible is just to make sure that actual unit stays out of the way of this rear compartment door. If it's mounted too low, as soon as you open that compartment door, it's going to run in and hit the bottom of the AC unit. By drilling from the inside here, I can position this unit as high up as possible and not have to worry about accidentally drilling into the frame or metal or any of this stuff up here. I'm not going to lie, I'm pretty nervous for this because I spent so much time on this back wall, and now we're just going to be cutting holes in it. I was doing some math, and I'm pretty sure if I drill these holes here, that it should get the AC unit far enough away from the window so that it doesn't overlap. And this is one of those things where just at some point you gotta go for it. You can't think about it forever. And I think that's what we're gonna do, but this is terrifying. All right, there's a hole in the van. I'm only gonna drill 2 to start, just in case this doesn't work for some reason. All right, let's go look. Sweet, couple small holes. So I've got the screwdriver here, and I'm just gonna try and start by jamming it in there just to help hold the weight of this thing because it is heavy. And right now I just kind of wanna test fit it and just make sure this unit kind of sits in a good position where I want it. Whew, okay. As you guys just saw, I was awkwardly test fitting the AC unit, and I made one slight adjustment, and now I think it looks pretty good. So we are going to drill the other holes and get this thing mounted. That helps a little bit. So I did have to go back to the hardware store, get some longer bolts, but Now I have 3 bolts attached up top. They're not tightened down a lot right now, but the nut is tightened enough that I feel like I'm going to remove these ratchet straps because I feel pretty confident that this thing should be supported with those bolts now. All right, it is attached and it is supported under its own weight. You guys can see the bolts we got in there. I did have to disconnect this thing in order to get access to that back bolt there. And there's a third one there. Up top, we have 3 more bolts. So a total of 6 bolts holding this in place. And now let's go inside the van. And let me give you guys a look at what it looks like in here. So here's that backing plate that I custom built. Now I think we're gonna work on tightening everything down. I do think I'm gonna try and find some washers as well to put behind these nuts before I tighten everything down. But let's go ahead and get this thing secure. So my plan here is to do a washer first, and then just a standard plain old nut. Tighten that down. And then just because this is a vehicle, it's gonna be under vibrations. Then I'm gonna do a nylon locking nut on top of that, just to kind of do a jam nut and hopefully keep it from vibrating loose. All right, so something I love to do when you need to tighten nuts down and you only have one person is you can just grab a pair of vice grips, and I'll need to adjust it here. But you can clamp onto the nut, and then you guys can see when I tighten it, it will just run into the bottom of our frame here, jam up, and allow me to tighten the bolt. One other thing I'm going to do, and I apologize, I know you guys can't really see this, but I'm going to fill all of the holes with Sikaflex 221 as I tighten them down to hopefully help weather seal them. And as great as impacts are, sometimes with this stuff, I do like to just tighten it by hand, just so I can get more of a feel. It is bolted up. We've got 6 bolts, 3 on the bottom, 3 up top, and then they are all attached through that backing plate that we fabbed up this morning. And then Sikaflex is in all of the holes to help weather seal it. And this thing feels super solid. I was testing it. I can actually fully hang from it, and I'm not super heavy, but still, I think that is a good sign if it can support my whole body weight. Everything is already tightened down, just standard nuts. And now I'm going to tighten these nylon locking nuts into the backs of the standard nuts. That will kind of create like a jam nut and just hopefully help to secure everything with all of the vibrations and movements as we drive down the road. So it's just a 10mm bolt up here. You can go ahead and remove this plastic cover. For this line that connects to, I believe, the compressor here, you have to remove both this blue cap, but also this little black internal cap as well. Both of those need to come out, and then you should be able to connect the line. So the high pressure line is connected here, and then the low pressure line is connected right down there. This one feeds out through this little gap. I think I'll run the power cable out through here too, and then we'll come down here and pass it through somewhere down here in this area. Next, we're gonna drill the hole through our wall to pass the refrigerant lines and the power cable. So I'm just marking out where I wanna drill that. I'm gonna do it from the inside just because there's such a tight gap of where that gasket fits here in this area. And I just want to make sure I line it up correctly and don't accidentally drill into the frame that I have here. So this is the gasket they give you to pass through. And I'm going to be using a 2 1/4 inch hole saw. That is the size of the inside diameter. And we're going to drill a hole straight through our wall. You'll notice too, these lines are also very long. I would much rather prefer that than having them too short, because it's a lot easier to just deal with some excess line. As you guys can see, the refrigerant lines are pretty dang long. And since they come in on the passenger side of the van, I think naturally it makes sense to run these over and mount the AC unit up here on the back driver's side of the van, just because it kind of seems like the natural path for these lines to follow without putting any super sharp bends or kinks in them. So I think we'll mount the AC unit kind of up in this area. So we need to start by getting these refrigerant lines over to this area. And in order to do that, I'm gonna have to drill some holes with my hole saw so that we can run these through the framing, because the wall is going to be sitting perfectly flush here and we wanna keep these out of sight, tucked into the wall. So let's go ahead and drill some holes and run these lines over to the other side. So now the lines come in and then they go through the framing up top here to where our unit is going to be mounted. Now we're also going to need a hole in, imagine this as our wall, to get the refrigerant lines from inside the framing out into the unit. So we're going to drill another hole with the hole saw here, and eventually we'll do the same in our wall. Even still, these refrigerant lines are just a little bit too long. So as you guys can see, I am having to loop them here, but this is exactly why I'm doing all of the test fitting now, so that we can get these things perfectly lined up for once the wall is installed. How the hell do I screw this in and hold it? For the most part, I'd say you could do a van build by yourself, but there also are definitely times like this where a second set of hands would save a lot of time. I'm always surprised at how secure just 4 screws can be. But just like that, this thing feels super solid. Now, I should have done this earlier, but I'm gonna try and show you guys just how this mounts, because you have a couple pieces here. We've got this one kind of adapter, a bigger, thicker one. And then we have 2 longer Allen key bolts. Those are going to sit in there. You guys can kind of see the recessed areas on one side versus it's just flat on this side. So the Allen key sits in there, and then that way it's perfectly flush. So that's how that goes. And then let me pull one of these lines out. So you'll see 2 different sized holes. Basically, the side that the Allen keys go in, these are where your refrigerant lines are going to connect to. So this is our smaller high pressure line, and that is going to pop into the hole there. You can hear it kind of click. And then of course the bigger low pressure line will go in this side. And then you have a couple more pieces, this bracket and a smaller Allen key that I apparently cannot hold on to. And you'll notice on the top of this section there is a 3rd hole right there. And this bracket is going to basically hold these refrigerant lines in place. So there is a bigger side, a smaller side. The smaller side goes over, of course, the smaller hose. And then you can see that this short Allen key will then essentially thread into that hole there. Perfect. And then this plate will hold the refrigerant lines in place. So of course you also install the low pressure line here before tightening this down. Now on the actual unit itself, there is a cover that comes installed from the factory. But if you remove those 2 screws there, you can take this cover off. And then those 2 Allen keys that you see there, those get threaded into this bracket, same exact area where the screws are that are holding this cover plate in place. And that is how you install the refrigerant lines to the actual unit. I'm not going to be really doing it today because again, this is all just temporary. This is just test fitting, but I did want to show you guys. And then of course we also have this 3-pin connector, and this is pretty self-explanatory. It just connects right into the opposite connector that goes to our control units. So as far as mounting the AC unit, this is about as much as we can do for now, but let me show you guys what the remaining steps are going to be. So of course, we will have to pull this off, but once we actually install our wall here in the back, we will pretty much do the exact same process to reinstall this indoor unit. We will drill a hole just like this so that the refrigerant lines can come through the framing out and connect to our unit there. Same thing with the power cable. So that will be kind of the next step once the walls are done. We also, if I go outside, we also have to run this power cable, it's positive and negative, through our wall, and unfortunately I did not realize, so I do have to order one more of these cable clamps. Cable clams, I forget exactly what they're called, but just basically a pass through of our wall to weather seal everything and prevent water from coming through. So I just ordered another one of those today. Once that arrives, we'll take out the hole saw again and just do the exact same process of getting these installed. Now I apologize because I know this video is not showing everything to set up this AC unit. We still have to charge the system, we still have to connect it to power, and I would love to show you guys how to do that, but I am just not to that step yet. One, we just don't have our battery set up yet, and in order to charge the system, I believe you have to turn it on and run it a little bit. And then the second thing, I am just honestly not sure how to actually charge a mini split system. I know there are a couple videos on YouTube showing that process, so I'll have to do a little bit of research and figure that out. But this was about the only time I could mount the AC unit because I'm getting closer to actually doing the walls in this van. And once the walls are up, it would be way harder, impossible really, to run some of these refrigerant lines and get this whole system set up. So that's why I am doing it now when all of this framing is still open. So that is going to wrap it up for this video of mounting the inside and outside unit to our mini split. This is going to run off of our 12-volt system, and I am so excited to have this. I almost didn't install it, but I figured it was just a couple $100. I had the opportunity to do it now, and then just in case I'm camping on some super warm summer nights, now I have it in case I need it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you found this helpful. I know the process of mounting a mini split is going to vary a lot depending on what type of van you're mounting it in, but hopefully this video helps a little bit in just showing the process of getting this stuff mounted. If you guys enjoyed this video and you found it helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. It's a great way to help support my channel, and I really do appreciate it. Thanks again for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one.